here's an interesting take, I think, that I want to go to next. We're going to talk to Charles calling in from Canada. Charles, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing okay. I'll be honest, I'm a little shocked by your take here. For the call screener wrote down that you don't think Christian nationalism is bad. I think that's a hot take, Charles. You want to explain that to me?
Yeah, well, it's your topic, but when I saw it, I was like the tenets of Christianity are perfect for humanity, so I can't comprehend how anybody would think that a society run by Christianity would be a negative experience.
Well, I think the native populations of literally every country on earth that's ever been colonized by Christians would disagree that they're perfect tenets. I'll be honest with you, Charles. Like Christianity and Christian nationalism has not had a good track record just in the real world, you know?
Nah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. In history, the churches have not had a good take. But if you look at the root of real Christianity, like even our society in North America,
where is it?
Our free society is based off the tenets of Jesus, right?
But where's the real roots? Who has the real roots? Which organization has the real roots?
Where did our free society come from? Where did the liberation of women and slaves come from, if not from Jesus? Yes, from Jesus.
Wait, let's slow down. Let's slow down. Hold on, let's go back. You said the abolition of women and slaves come from Jesus?
Jesus.
Absolutely.
Then
100%.
you understand that wait, hold on. Charles, hold on. You understand that the United States was one of the largest importers of slaves in the history of the world. It has also been one of the most Christian nations. Right?
Yes, from the churches. That's what I just said. The churches, even the Vatican, it's a greedy man that doesn't follow anything that Jesus says. They call themselves Father, for instance. Jesus says, don't call yourself Father.
No. It wasn't Catholics that were importing. No, Charles. It wasn't Catholics that were importing slaves. These are Protestant peoples.
That's right.
Like this was Christians of flavor that were slave owners.
Charles, can I give you a little bit of it? Can I hold on for a second, Charles, before we go? I feel I must interject. I want to give you like a little bit of a history lesson, just a little bit. I'm going to try my best not to monologue, but I must say this, Charles. Before the term white was even codified in consider of race, what was considered a person of that's been established and also of good stature was a English Christian landowner. Okay, an English Christian landowner. You did not see the term white, and I'm going somewhere with here, until the 1680s. And that was a series of laws that happened after Nathaniel Bacon's raid that happened in Virginia. And then those laws actually was helping to solidify the changing of labor in the Americas from indentured servitude to labor slavery, specifically from countries in West Africa and Central Africa. When those particular slaves were coming from those countries through the transatlantic slave trade, those were not at the behest of the church. They were not at the behest of the Vatican. They were not at the behest of any of those particular organizations. They were that was established through the landowners who needed labor for their tobacco farms at the time. And then later on in cotton fields and indigo farms and tobacco, I said tobacco farms. And then it was something that was codified in state constitutions, and also given its idea or blessing per se from the federal government once the United States was established in 1776. So there was no church per se that was saying that slavery was going to be coming through these particular avenues. Now you did have Christian outlets like the Southern Baptist Convention that were actually using a lot of their preachers to actually utilize slavery and actually justify slavery, and they did it with the Bible. it was quite easy to do. Just read the Old Testament and read Paul's epistles. There's a lot of, actually, and so if I were even to say that, is like slavery per se inherently, a Christian tenet, I can possibly say that, and I can use the Bible to do it, because it was done in history for hundreds of years to actually say that slavery was okay. And also the objectifying of women. That's also very much so something that's in the Bible that says it's okay, because women were considered property.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these have nothing to do with the words of Jesus. And to be fair, slavery has nothing to do with white, and white has nothing to do with Christianity. Slavery has been going on long before even the Bible was even written. It's been since the start of humanity. Black people slaved their own people. The natives slaved their own people. Everybody
slavery. Wait, hold
You're
on.
absolutely right.
Hold on, Charles. You're correct. You're right.
And how many times did Jesus say we should let go of our slaves?
That's right.
He did. So that's what Jesus said.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He did not.
He did not. There was not one portion of the Gospels in the canon that we have right now that actually had Jesus say to let go slaves, to free slaves, to not to use slaves. That was never.
You might be familiar with Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5, which is Paul, the Apostle Paul, one of the founders of the Christian faith, saying, "Slaves, be obedient to your human masters with fear and trembling, in sincerest of heart, as to Christ." Okay, like he's talking. That letter is written to a Christian slave owner, someone who believed in God, who believed in Jesus, and owned slaves. Paul is maybe saying, "Hey, everybody should own slaves," but he's certainly not saying, "Hey, you need to, this is an institution that shouldn't exist at all."
Right.
He's telling slaves that they should obey their masters. That's it.
Anyway, can the guy that read the Bible off and pretend you're good points? Like Jesus never wrote Ephesians. That was Paul. Okay, Paul said he had a vision and he wrote some stuff. Paul was a scholar of the Old Testament, so of course his words are going to be in line with that. Jesus never said anything about slavery. And when they asked him why there was such harsh laws in the Old Testament, he said the laws were made for the cold hearts of men. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the laws were there because men were going to do it anyways. So he gave them a guideline on how to do it in the most humane way, if you will.
Wait, no. Wait a minute, Charles. Are you saying there's a most humane way to own another human being? Because I would argue, Charles, the most humane thing to do is to not own a human being. Like, why is Jesus? Hold on, wait a minute. Jesus is supposed to be the culture changer. We're not supposed to be of the world, yet somehow we're going to create guidelines that align with whatever the world is going to do anyway. Why is the same guy who's saying you can't have sex before marriage? You have to, do all these, follow these laws and follow these prohibitions, but he can't say, don't own another human being? Are you really telling me that this was Jesus's MO? He was just saying, slavery, it's just a fact of the world, and we have to deal with it. Because it's not a fact. I mean, obviously it still exists today, right? But slavery in the forms that we historically talk about is not as widespread as it once was.
Yeah, of course not. But so Jesus never ever says to hold slaves. He says slaves obey, sure, right? He gives a criteria.
Well, Jesus doesn't say that.
Paul said that.
And
Paul said it.
Slavery was a way to repay debts, right? Slavery wasn't just you go grab somebody and keep them. They were war criminals and people that wanted to pay off debt, right?
So you're saying Jesus is okay with work with indentured servitude? You're saying Jesus is perfectly fine with the systems of having people pay off their debt through forced labor?
It's better than being killed, don't you think? Back then,
how about we don't make people be slaves? How about we don't make them servants or force them into situations where they have to pay off their debt? And I mean, that's literally how the prison system works, right? Like we put people in the prisons and we make them work, and we don't give them sufficient pay for their work that we would with somebody who's not a prisoner. Like that's literally being a prisoner. Like we don't have to do that.
And the 13th Amendment actually reinstitutes that, saying that only slavery is abolished only, but if you're not a convicted felon. So slavery is still something that can be utilized, and also the tenets of slavery can be utilized in our criminal justice system through the law. But I want to ask you, Paul, because like, how do you rectify?
Charles, yeah.
I mean, Charles. I'm sorry, Charles. I want to ask Paul this too, but I want to, but I want to ask you, Charles. How do you rectify if Jesus didn't say certain things about slavery per se, even though he never said that it was wrong or something that we shouldn't practice? He did say that he did not come to destroy the law, but came to fulfill it.
Yeah.
Okay. So to me, that means that he didn't really have like that much of an issue with the 613 laws that, you know, that was already established in the Hebrew Edict. And part of that was how to treat slaves, like beating a slave in an inch of his life. And if he doesn't die, then the slave owner is okay. Or, you know, being able to purchase slaves from other nations around you, but you can keep them in perpetuity and also pass them off to your children. Or even like if slaves happened to be women or girls, that those are not the ones that you have to let go of their Hebrew. They can be also enslaved in perpetuity as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, so Jesus did change the laws. He broke the Sabbath. He, when the woman was accused of adultery, he stopped what Moses demanded. He broke so many laws, and he explained why he did, and he did fulfill it when he died, right? So the new covenant is a new set of laws under the words of Jesus Christ, who is love each other as I have loved you. What did Jesus do for us? He died for us. He tells us to love everyone, black, white, red, everyone, slaves, masters. Yeah. To the extent he loved us, which is to die.
Jesus never spoke against slavery and said that it was right. He never
said it was a bad thing.
He never
didn't
said
say,
that the institution of slavery should not exist. He never said that.
He did chastise people for lustful thoughts. He chastised people for being hypocrites. He chastised people for a lot of things. Never said being a slave was wrong. In fact, one of his parables involves indentured servitude. So, you know, I think he was okay with it. I think he was a Jewish man living at the time, talking about the customs that were already there. And I don't think he had any particularly enlightening views on it. And so he didn't absolve himself to abolish it. Because if I was Jesus, I don't know, if I was Jesus and I was like, hey, I need to tell the world that they're sinning, I think that indentured servitude would be up there on the list. I don't know. That's just me. But he didn't, and as a consequence, the Christian church did not either, right? And it hadn't for years, not just decades, not just centuries, but tens of centuries. It has always been a thing and wasn't an issue up until the last couple hundred years, which is very interesting to say the least. And let's talk about this too. I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm ranting here.
No, it's okay. But I just want to just point out one more thing. Do you remember when Jesus was when the Roman soldier brought Jesus his slave to be healed by Jesus?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, Jesus healed him and set him on his way, but he never told the Roman soldier to let him go.
No, never.
Never.
Why would he?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead with your rant.
No, I'm just saying, this country purports to be a Christian nation, and at the same time, it tends to absolve itself of the horrendous things it's done in the name of Christianity. So which is it? Either we are a Christian nation and we follow those tenets, or, they weren't actually Christian in the first place. Because American slavery was a country identifier. We were known for our amount of slaves in the amount of the world. Many people in history have commented on that fact. And besides that, we've been a history of a racist nation too. I mean, let's talk about that. Why was interracial marriage not legalized until 1967? Part of it was because churches were saying this was wrong. You can find the works of all kinds of pastors who talked about this and also cite the Bible for it. So yeah, look, we can talk about what Jesus really meant or what he didn't mean, but as the history of Christianity in any form of institution for the vast majority of it was totally cool with slavery and oftentimes endorsed it.
That's right.
That's just a historical fact.
So I believe personally you're contorting the two. And Jesus said, Jesus, if he had said that, just like in North America when it happened, if he had said, everybody free your slaves, people would have walked away. They wouldn't have listened to him. So instead he said, love each other.
So he doesn't comment on it at all? So he's just going to ignore it?
No,
What's
he
the
didn't.
deal
He
here?
said,
Why
"Let
does
each other as
what's
I
his?
live."
Let me get this straight.
Liberating
So
people than that.
you think what Jesus said was the most effective form of preventing slavery? You think if he hadn't
Yeah.
said what he said, slavery in this country would actually be worse?
If Jesus didn't exist and say the things he said, 100% we'd still be in slavery. 100%. No
Amazing.
question about it.
Amazing.
Women would still be
So-
That
100%.
that is absolutely
Very
amazing
incredible.
that you said that. You know,
Yeah.
I want to tell you to read a particular book, but I don't know if we can endorse books on this show. But
Hey, you read a book and you liked it. I don't know. I think you can say that.
Yeah, I read a book. It was a pretty good book. But there's a lot of books specifically about the church, you know, the Southern Baptist Convention specifically, because it was the second largest denomination in the United States that was not only about church, but very much so into the intermingling of politics in the United States. Matter of fact, you had leaders in that particular denomination that were also the ones that were pulling for the Union to be separated so that they can fight the Civil War over the possible abolishment of slavery when Lincoln became president, because he was known as an abolitionist. These people used the Bible appropriately in order for them to endorse slavery, to justify slavery, to even utilize it to say that a certain sect of people were considered the chosen people, and therefore they are in the right to own slaves. This was the general sentiment of the power establishment for hundreds of years before the United States was even a nation. And they did it based on Christian principles. And even when you had the civil rights movement happening, you had preachers too who was using Christian principles to actually uphold the institution of segregation. They use the Bible very much so to do all of these particular things. So it really baffles me for you to say that if Jesus spoke against slavery and he said not to have it, it would have been 100 times worse, when all the particular people who owned slaves and who were in politics at the time, and also the leaders of the church, used the Bible to endorse slavery. I don't understand how you make that jump.
Cynthia, can I recommend a book for you to read? It's called The New Testament, The Gospel According to Jesus. Let me give you a quote from James, his brother. True religion, undefiled before God the Father, is this: to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, and to keep yourself unspotted from the world. So I don't know how Christianity, Christ, true words of Jesus, have been contorted into some evil thing, when truly the words of Jesus were carried on the back of evil men through history.
Charles,
the world.
Charles,
that's the truth of the matter.
If let's say I have it, let's say right now, I'm talking about a real world scenario. I have an indentured servant right now who's paying back his debts to me because he owes me money. Do you think that's right? Would you tell me I shouldn't do that?
Well, is tax evasion, is jailing people for tax evasion right? I mean, it's our society, man.
No.
No.
You, Charles, you tell me. I have a person in my house right now who didn't pay me back for money I gave them, so I'm making them work for me. They're washing my dishes, they're cleaning my clothes, they're doing stuff for me. Is that right? Would you tell me I shouldn't have that?
Yeah, sure. If he agrees.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Hey. Cool. Charles. Cool. Why didn't Jesus say that? When he talked to someone who owned an indentured servant right there in the New Testament, why didn't he say, "Hey, you shouldn't do that"? Why?
He did. He said,
"No, he didn't." No, he did not. No, he did not. Listen, Jesus was all about calling people out for their sins, right? He is totally cool telling sex workers they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. He is totally cool telling people that they shouldn't be getting in other people's business and taking out the speck out of their eye versus the plank, the whole 9 yards, right? Why didn't he say, "Hey, you shouldn't actually own another person, or you shouldn't have an indentured servant"? Why didn't he say that?
Because it was the error.
It's right there.
Just like when they came and they asked him, should we pay taxes? He said, whose face is on the coin? Give to Caesar what's Caesar and give to God's what is God's. He didn't have the right to say these things in that era, but he did.
He didn't have the right.
He didn't have the right.
He didn't have
He
the
was
right.
God in
Charles, he's
flesh.
the
What
Son
are you
of God.
talking about?
What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh.
On what authority does he have to say anything then? Oh, he's a citizen of the Roman state, so he can't go against slavery? What the fuck?
Wow.
Oh, that's crazy.
He had
I
the
didn't
right-
realize.
wait a
I didn't
minute.
realize, Charles. I didn't realize your morality was dependent on your citizenship to a nation. That you have
Oh,
to
wow.
follow the laws of the time. My goodness, Charles.
Right.
Here's the thing.
That's
Charles. Here's the
interesting.
thing. Jesus didn't say it because he was a Jewish man living in the time, and in his contemporary culture, it was fine, right? Like that's the reason. It wasn't because he had any particular special moral insight. I mean, maybe he had some good takes here and there, but the point is that was an institution he was okay with, and if he wasn't okay with it, it probably would have been recorded. And maybe he wasn't okay with it, and people didn't record it. I mean, that could be an option too. I'm not saying there's a lot we don't know about the life of Jesus, but the point is the history of the Christian church has deeply reflected the fact that they did not give a fuck about people being owned. They did
That's right.
not. And if they did, they would have said more about it because, man, we are really good at chastising homosexual people. We're really good at chastising women and telling them that we need to put them in their place. But damn, we felt really silent on the fact that people were owning other people for a long time. A long time.
That's right.
And that's Christianity to me. But Charles, I got to let you go because we got other people we got to talk to. And I have a feeling that we're not going to convince your mind on this. But I pray, Charles, you know what? I'm an atheist, but I pray that I have the confidence to call into a call-in show with a black woman and tell her that slavery was actually not cool with Christianity. Like, what the fuck, man? That's some
Right.
balls. That's some balls. I'll tell
Yeah,
you that.
even more so that I'm a black woman that's the descendant of slavery.
Yeah.
That's
mean,
exactly what I am. Like I have traced my lineage back to slavery on my maternal and paternal side. So
Yeah.
to tell me that that Jesus was not cool with slavery, and that basically the way that we actually thought about slavery was incorrect when the church absolutely endorsed slavery and the nation
It
also
did.
absolutely endorsed slavery for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
That takes gumption, my friend.
It does.
That
It
takes
does.
gumption.
And look, the fact that I get it. Look, were there Christian abolitionists? Absolutely. Did they take the Bible and interpret it in a way that meant that to treat other people equally? Sure. We can talk. Some of the most famous abolitionists out there were definitely Christian, and I will not argue with that. But the point is that is an interpretation that has not always existed in the history of Christianity. In fact, I would call it a very recent development in the history of theological interpretation because
It was.
a lot of
And they
people
were also
were
in the
Yeah.
also, Dan, they were in the minority. Abolitionists who were actually utilizing Christian tenets in order to say that slavery was wrong, was using, different things about like, the slave, the widow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it was never based on anything concrete that Jesus said, the apostles said, Paul said, or any of those things that said that slavery was wrong, ever.
Yeah. And we can talk about the whole, the church, this church wasn't the real Christians, yada yada. I don't care, right? I don't care. Like, I want to know what this ideology has done for people, and it hasn't done a whole lot for indigenous peoples in most places of the world when it comes to Christianity, right? So anyway, that's a lot. It's a lot, man. Get me worked up on a Sunday here, Charles. What the heck? This is supposed to be a day of rest. Okay, I'm getting worked up. But anyway,
wait. No, Dan, remember he said that Jesus.
Oh, that's right. We broke the Sabbath, so we don't have to follow that.
Sabbath,
You're right.
so it's okay. It's okay.
You're right. It's good. I can get worked up, and I can do miracles too. Apparently,
that's right.
So if I do that, I'll let you know.